Welcome to TBH, Hazelmere Windows Insight on the commercial glazing industry. We aim to share news and views on topics of interest for commercial glazing providers and users. We look forward to receiving your feedback on the topics discussed or those of interest. In this programme, we'll be talking about the thermal performance of a building envelope. Over to Jamie Lewis, our Commercial Director, to explain in more detail.
Thank you. When we talk about the thermal performance of a building envelope, one of the first terms that comes up is the U-value. In simple terms, a U-value measures how easily heat passes through a building element. So, with windows, doors and curtain walling, the lower the U-value, the better the thermal performance. That sounds straightforward, but in practice there is quite a lot of detail behind the number. And that detail really matters when clients, architects and contractors are comparing different aluminium systems or comparing aluminium with alternative materials such as UPVC, timber or composite. Under the Part L guidance, the limiting U-value for windows, doors and curtain walling are minimum standards. They are not necessarily best practice and they are not always the performance levels that a project will actually need. For new dwellings and existing non-dwellings, the current limiting U-value is 1.6, whilst for existing dwellings it's 1.4. However, it's important to remember that these are minimum baseline compliance figures. Many projects will need or choose to outperform baseline requirements to achieve a better whole building thermal performance, reduce energy demand, or indeed to meet a particular sustainability target. Depending on the building type and application, a project may technically be able to comply with building regulations at 1.4 or 1.6. However, if the specification calls for a window U-value of say 1.0, then that immediately changes the type of aluminium system required. At that level, we would normally be looking at a higher performing aluminium system, typically with triple glazing, enhanced thermal breaks, and a much more thermally efficient frame design. And where a project is targeting something closer to 0.8, which is more typical of the performance levels associated with passive house type design, then the specification becomes even more demanding. So, the lower the target U-value, the more important the complete window size and configuration becomes. When aluminium system companies publish U-values in marketing literature, the figures are usually based on standardised sizes, centre pane values and configurations. Part L allows window U-values to be assessed either using the actual size and configuration, or against a standard size of 1.23 metres wide by 1.48 metres high. The standard sizes are useful because they give the industry a consistent basis for testing and comparison. However, they don't always reflect the real project condition. In reality, there may be numerous variations. For instance, the windows may vary in frame width, have different opening vents, or include features such as spandrel panels. Any of these variations can change the real U-value. Hence why there is an important distinction between a declared system U-value and a project-specific area-weighted U-value. Quite often, the published SEN or standard size value represents a best case, or at least a very specific scenario. It may not be the value achieved once the system is designed across the actual project elevations. This is particularly important when comparing different aluminium systems or alternative materials. The question should not simply be, what U-value does the system achieve? A better question would be, is that U-value based on standard SEN sizes, or is it based on the actual project sizes and an area-weighted calculation? That distinction is critical. Without it, two systems can appear to be directly comparable, when in reality, the figures are not being measured on the same basis. For clients, architects, and contractors, this can affect specification decisions, compliance reporting, and ultimately the thermal performance of the finished building. The government describes the changes due to come into effect in 2027 as intended to ensure new homes and non-domestic buildings are future-proofed, with low carbon heating and high levels of energy efficiency. For fenestration specifically, industry commentary from CAB indicates that the limiting and notional U values for windows, doors and curtain walling have not actually changed from the 2021 position, but there are important changes in how performance is evidenced and assessed. So, while the headline U value limits may not be moving as dramatically as some expected, the direction of travel is still very clear. Greater focus on real-world performance and better evidence, and a more accurate reflection of products being installed. That means the industry will need to keep moving away from headline figures alone and towards project-specific performance data that reflects the true building design. Feel free to give us a call if you'd like to chat more about U values, or if you have a project you'd appreciate some advice on.
Thank you, Jamie. So there we have it, the latest on U values and some thoughts for future project planning. We'd love to get your feedback on this subject and indeed hear any requests you have for future editions of TBH, an honest look at the commercial fenestration industry. Till the next time, when we'll be discussing high-risk buildings.